So let's start again. Good morning. Good morning, everyone in the room and online. Welcome to another Sunrise meeting. So we start a brand new month and the theme is conflict, peace and conflict resolution. So our speakers, of course, will be geared towards that theme and we kick that off today and you'll hear more. But to do our invocation, let me invite Father P. Is he online?
Very much so.
Father P, please go ahead with our invocation.
Let us pray. No video though. I can't do my video right here. Let us pray. Good and gracious God, we thank you for your gift of a new and beautiful day. We ask your special blessing on all of us who are already on and those who will come on, as we thank you for the technology that continues to bind us together. Bless the proceedings of our meeting, and during this conflict resolution month, we pray, Lord, that we would have peace in our hearts, in our homes, in our streets, in our society, indeed, in our world. Bless us now as we meet in your name. These and all other blessings we ask through Christ our Lord. Amen.
And to our beautiful
Is your hair full?
Leroy. Leroy.
Welcome, fellow Rotarians and guests. Let us raise our coffee mugs, our glasses, in the loyal toast to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
The Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
All right. Thank you. So one of the areas of focus for Rotary is peace and conflict resolution. And it's one of the areas of focus, as I said earlier. We have a wonderful speaker this morning, and you'll hear more about her in just a second. Let me invite Secretary Kemi to do the official welcome, because we're going to take our speaker early. I understand she has to get to the airport by 7:30, and so we have to bring her on early. So we are going to pivot and kind of change around our agenda this morning, and some of the preliminaries will end up coming after our speaker. So I'm going to invite Secretary Kemi, if you're online. Let me just invite Director Keynote to come forward and do the welcome. And after that, the next voice you'll hear is the voice of Justice Carla Card-Stubbs. PAG Carlo will introduce our guest speaker. So you could just, yes, you could just. All right.
Morning, baby.
One second. Give me 13 seconds. All right.
Good morning once again, everybody, and welcome, not just to another Rotary Club of National Sunrise meeting, but welcome to the month of February. And in this month, I'd like to go ahead, all of our Rotarians and visiting guests. And so, first of all, I'd like to welcome, well, not really my guest, but my son's guest, our guest speaker this morning, who is the Attorney General for the Turks and Caicos Island, Mistress Rhondalee Knowles. And then I'd also like to welcome my guest, who is my father. Welcome. And I would like to also open up a space for everyone that is on the call. If you have someone visiting this morning, for you to go ahead and introduce your guests at this time, please. Do we have any visitors, any Rotarians you have visiting guests with you this morning?
Good morning, Director. I'd like to welcome Carolyn once again to the meeting.
Good morning. Okay, welcome, Carolyn. Is there anyone else?
Good morning.
There's nobody else. Go ahead.
This Ali returning guest is gonna.
Ali, okay, welcome, Ali, welcome to our meeting. President Donet's guest, welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good
Do we have
morning.
anyone else visiting with us?
Good morning. I would like to introduce Delisa Duncanson. A stranger.
Hi, good morning. My name is Delisa Duncanson, past president of the Nassau Club. Morning, my fellow Rotarians and Felix.
Good morning. Welcome. Do we have any more visitors? If not, I'd like to say a special thank you for joining us this morning. We have a wonderful lineup, but we have a whole lot of things planned and in store for you. And so please just sit back, relax, and enjoy. And before I take my seat, I want to let you know that this morning, even as we get ready to celebrate, February is the month of love. And for those of you that may have spouses or significant others that love the kitchen, our raffle prize this morning is a wonderful rice cooker. And I can't tell you how important it is to have a rice cooker in your life. It saves you so much time, effort, and energy. You could just put something on and then it's done in no time. And so this morning we are raffling it's a really nice rice cooker right here, courtesy of the purple team. Woo-hoo. And so we have 1 ticket for 5 and 3 for 10. So feel free to go ahead and place your orders and whatever it is you want in the chat as I walk around the room and we'll get to you. Thank you so very much, everyone. Enjoy your day.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Director Akeisha. And we're right on time. I promised my speaker that we would have her at around 7:10. So I'll now invite PAG Carlo to introduce our guest speaker. PAG Carlo.
Thank you. Thank you, President Doneth. Good morning, everyone. It's my honor to introduce the Honorable Rhondalee Brathwaite Knowles, Order of the British Empire, King's Counsel, as our speaker this morning. Mrs. Rhondalee Brathwaite Knowles was born on Grand Turks and Caicos Islands. She graduated with a Bachelor of Laws degree from the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill, Barbados, and was awarded a certificate in legal education, known as the Bar Certificate, from the prestigious Eugene Depuche Law School, New Providence, the Bahamas. Earlier, she had attained a Bachelor of Sciences degree in government with an emphasis on law and history from the Liberty University in Virginia, USA. Rhondalee began working for the Turks and Caicos Islands government in August 2000 when she returned from the Bahamas from the law school and started in the post of Crown Counsel. She was later promoted to Senior Crown Counsel, that was 2005 to 2006, in the Commercial Civil Department of the AG's chambers. Her practice included commercial work, civil litigation, international compliance, and legislative drafting. She recalls that a highlight of her tenure was her secondment to the Attorney General's chambers in Montserrat for 2 brief periods in 2002 and again in 2004. On the 1st of April 2006, she was again promoted and became Principal Crown Counsel, Commercial, in the Attorney General's chambers, where she headed the Commercial and Civil Division. And on the 1st of April 2008, she proudly took up the post of Deputy Attorney General of the Turks and Caicos Islands, and she was the first ever Islander to hold that post. In October 2013, Mrs. Rhondalee Brathwaite Knowles received an order as Officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire Award from Her Majesty the Queen for her services to the development and reform of the public service of the Turks and Caicos Islands. On March 6, 2014, history was again made in the Turks and Caicos Islands when she was sworn in at the House of Assembly as the first local, youngest, and the first female Attorney General of the Turks and Caicos Islands. She is the first woman to be elevated to King's Counsel in the Turks and Caicos Islands. I did not teach the Honorable Rhondalee Brathwaite Knowles, but I do know I met her when she came as speaker to one of the graduations of the law school. And I do know that her alma mater is really proud of her accomplishments. So it is my honor to introduce and to welcome the Honorable Rhondalee Brathwaite Knowles, OBE-KC.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you. Can you hear her in the room?
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me well?
President Donis, I think they're saying loud and clear.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, great. So I'm very pleased to be with you. I'm very pleased to be with you this morning and to, as invited by Mr. Trevin Smith and his mother, who are my stepdaughter and step-grandson. But I'm very pleased to be with you this morning to bring us brief remarks in relation to your topic. Thank you very much for the warm welcome and for making time on your agenda this morning, because I do have to take a flight. I have the National Security Council on another island this morning. So in reflecting on your topic, I was trying to think about some of the things that we are doing here in the Turks and Caicos Islands around reconciliation, around maintaining peace, social cohesiveness, and safety and security in our community. Much like the Bahamas, the Turks and Caicos Islands has a very, very similar social construct. In fact, some would say we're not only the extension of the archipelago, because we are literally at the end of the archipelago, but that we are an extension of the Bahamas society. We have family in common. We have this very same type of natural disaster issues. We have the same porous borders. We have the same issues as relates to immigration. You know, the very same types of issues are confronted here. And as between the two communities, we have family members that reside in the Turks and Caicos Islands from the Bahamas, and in the Bahamas from the Turks and Caicos Islands. So it's a very, very similar social construct. And one of the issues that we confront is the diversity in our community. We have a natural diversity, which has occurred, and I'm sure has occurred in the Bahamas as well, where we have persons like myself. I was born in Grand Turk in the Turks and Caicos Islands, but my father is Barbadian and migrated to the Turks and Caicos Islands to be a police officer, and met a little Turks and Caicos Islands girl from South Caicos. And as they say, the rest is history. But it does mean that I am the product of the Turks and Caicos Islands culture and of the Barbadian culture. And there are many like me who live and work in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Some persons not born here, some born elsewhere. We also have persons who are born in the United States, many born in the Bahamas, but who are Turks and Caicos Islanders by a parental link. And so, for example, our former Premier, Charlene Cartwright Robinson, who's known to many of you, was born in the Bahamas, but rose to be a premier and first female premier in the Turks and Caicos Islands. And of course, per our constitutional requirements for allegiance, she did have to renounce that Bahamian citizenship in order to take up that position. And only recently, our deputy premier and no less than 2 other members of his administration who were elected into the House were similarly required to renounce Bahamian citizenship to take up their position because they were born in the Bahamas. And so we have, I just want to explain the diversity that we have in these islands. And from what I read, I know for sure that this is the very same thing that obtains in the Bahamas. And then we have persons who don't have a familial link to these islands. We have persons who have migrated, much like my father and others from various places, and who live here, don't marry into Turks and Caicos families, but raise their families here. And we have persons who come into these islands illegally, and who or come in legally and remain illegally in the islands. And in the predominant group of persons, such persons are from Haiti, and I know that that is the very same thing that obtains in the Bahamas. So what is the result of all of this diversity? Diversity is not in itself anything bad. It is in fact good. Our cultural diversity in the Caribbean is informed by persons that have come from all over the Caribbean to live in any one of our communities, and who add a richness to the culture. And where there is the right sort of balance, what is called social cohesion, then of course it works very well. It's enriching. We have our neighbor to the north who likes to boast about that kind of diversity and what it has meant for that country historically, and it is counted as a strength. So in like manner, it is my belief that social diversity is a strength. But where there is an imbalance in it, there are lots of issues that result. And so like in the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos Islands, we have seen an imbalance, and we are trying our best to address that imbalance in a way that respects people's human rights, that respects the right to family life, that respects the right to due process, and but that also leads to social cohesion in the long term, that leads to promote the development of the islands in the long term. And what we realize is that the situation that we find ourselves in with this imbalance did not occur overnight. And so it will not be resolved overnight. It will take a lot of effort, collective and individual, and it will take some time, but it requires deliberate action and a lot of conversation. So our premier, who has a vision for the long-term sustainable development of these islands, embraces that diversity, and in particular has called for the diaspora of Turks and Caicos who reside in the Bahamas and elsewhere to return to the TCI. Because as a result of the imbalance that we find ourselves in, we have realized a lot of crime, a lot of disorder, and breaches of peace. And of course, everyone knows that that kind of environment does not promote development, does not promote social cohesion. It, in fact, causes fractures to develop in a society, and people sort of, retreat to their various corners and factions, and people certainly begin to blame and point fingers and feel marginalized, and everyone is really trying to out for themselves, which is not something that creates an environment that promotes the kind of social cohesion, social mixing, cooperation that is needed for the long-term development of any place. So what our Premier has done is come in on a platform of reform in a number of key areas. We have introduced just the end of the year, last year, November, a suite of some 12 pieces of criminal justice legislation, which follows on a very active legislative agenda to introduce a set of criminal law tools to promote policing, anti-gang legislation, legislation to increase police powers around detention, around roadblocks and stop and search, legislation to allow for policing tools to be enhanced in terms of telecommunications and interception of communications, to protect law enforcement so that persons who would seek to assault them or harm them in any way find themselves faced with much stiffer penalties. Legislation to provide for electronic tagging of phones so that what I call burner cell phones are able to be traced, and antisocial behavior legislation, which would not criminalize antisocial behavior, but would allow for the force of a court order to be introduced so that police officers and other law enforcement officers can tackle behavior immediately without having to wait to go through the lengthy process that can obtain through the courts. And so having such an order would not criminalize an individual, as I said, but would there would be a criminal penalty for a breach of such an order. And alongside that, we have introduced a number of resources, such as the additional policing, and we've joined in with our neighbors, and one stellar neighbor very commendably came to our aid in respect of a particular set of criminal activities. The Commonwealth of the Bahamas joined with us in joint activity, criminal fighting activities, not only on the sea through a shipwrighter agreement that we entered into, but also on the land through a policing support MOU that we entered into, and agreement, and that called for Bahamian police officers to join with Turks and Caicos Islands police officers And that, of course, is not it's not a gift, it is a strategy. Because what we found ourselves involved in is organized crime, regional organized crime. And so it was recognized in our joint efforts between the Bahamas and Jamaica and Turks and Caicos Islands, working with our neighbor, the United States, that there needed to be a coordinated effort. The Turks and Caicos Islands is certainly at the end of the chain of islands that comprise the Bahamas, as I've indicated. And so it is strategic for the Bahamas government to work with the Turks and Caicos Islands government to stop organized crime activity before it reaches the shores of the Bahamas, and to stamp it out where these criminal organizations are working as between our countries. And in similar fashion, we have agreements with the United States of America, joint agreements with the Bahamas, which does the very same thing, because obviously it is in the best interest of the United States to avoid, to deal with an issue before it reaches the US. And certainly it recognizes too that there are no borders for criminals. And so therefore, the work that they do in our respective countries, we have to work together to stamp that out. And so those are some of the tools that were introduced through greater regional cooperation and intelligence sharing. But in additional to that, those sort of hard tools, there are softer tools that are being used. And the Premier, through the cabinet, appointed a committee that is looking at our population policy. And in crafting the population policy, that committee of experts that will work for approximately 3 years are looking at our immigration laws, the laws that allow persons to become Turks and Caicos Islanders, the laws that facilitate social cohesion. And they have already made a set of recommendations which are being used as quick wins. And we are about to introduce another suite of legislation, which would allow persons who have assimilated into the community to have a pathway toward being permanent members of the community, where they have demonstrated that they have a commitment to the Turks and Caicos Islands. And again, going right back to where we began, that cultural diversity, its richness, its strengths. We recognize that we have to allow the opportunity for persons who have come to live in the Turks and Caicos Islands over a long period of time to truly feel that they are part of these islands and to work with us to grow and develop the Turks and Caicos Islands. And so the entire package of activities work together. It's said that the best way to prepare for war is, to have peace is to prepare for war. And so we certainly have a set of tough provisions that we continue to look at and introduce. But we also have another set of soft provisions. And those provisions, if you look at them in isolation, if you look at any activity in isolation, there can be room for criticism. But if you look at them in totality, as a total package, as a strategy to address serious issues that we have in our society that threaten the integrity of our society, that threaten the long-term sustainability of our society. And if you look at these things holistically, we realize that all of these efforts together must be patiently, but intentionally and deliberately put in place to address the social construct that we find ourselves in a way that is designed to promote social cohesion, not for now, but for the long-term sustainability of these islands. And again, where we are now, we didn't get here overnight, and we will not get to where we need to get to overnight. It will take time, it will take patience, it will take us all working together. But we have to tackle them. We have to tackle the difficult questions. We have to talk about the difficult issues, and we have to work together to address them. And so thank you very much for your time this morning, and for your patience and for listening. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Honorable Rhondalee Knowles. That was very thought-provoking. And I know you're rushing, so I'm not sure if you have time for questions. Okay, you have time for questions. So are there any questions?
Yes, sorry, I can take some questions.
So thank you for that. Are there any questions for?
Yes, good morning.
Yes, please go ahead with your question.
I am from Inagua, and of course I grew up with many Turks Islanders. My great-grandfather was from Middle Caicos, of Virgil. Having said that,
yes,
Madam, it is a fact, isn't it, that there are more non-Turks Islanders in the TCI than there are native Turks Islanders?
Yes, that's correct. And I should have also mentioned one additional thing that we are doing. We have just issued a census order. We undertake a census every 10 years. And so it is time now for the next census. But even if it wasn't, we would have introduced a new census. We've just amended our legislation to allow for the use of electronic tools in our census and more modern technology. But the last census certainly did have the Turks and Caicos Islanders as defined by law as a minority population in the wider population, and we expect that to continue. But we do want to understand the composition of the population, and so that is why we are doing a census.
Okay, my question is, you continue to develop at an economically at an extremely rapid pace. And my question is, where are you going to find the labor pool from to be supplied to all of these new places? And are you not becoming a victim of your own success by inviting voluntarily and under your own terms and conditions a number of non-nationals to be able to adequately staff these new businesses? Are you almost creating some dynamics that you might regret or becomes a particular challenge in itself, let me put it like that, because you have so many non-nationals that you're inviting in, apart from those that come illegally?
Yes, well, that is a very poignant question. And that question is at the heart of the work that we are doing. We have done a number of studies as to the composition of persons that currently reside in the islands, the pace of immigration growth in the islands, the pace of population growth overall, and a number of other studies looking at various sectors. We've just completed a labor sector study. We've done a study on education. And so what, again, remember, these issues have developed over many years, and they haven't occurred overnight, and they're not going to be repaired overnight. But remember, I said that we are undertaking a population policy review with a view to creating a population policy that addresses at its heart the very issue that you have just raised. Because and this is where, as I said, there has to be a decision making around how do we embrace persons that have come to live in the Turks and Caicos Islands over many years, more than 20 years in some cases, more than 30 years in some cases, who still feel, if everyone in the community feels marginalized, if Turks and Caicos Islanders feel marginalized, if persons who come to live here feel marginalized, if persons who were born to Turks and Caicos Islands parents but have returned home feel marginalized, if everyone in the community feels marginalized, then who belongs? Who belongs to this community? And so what we have got to do is craft a policy that helps to recognize who in fact belongs to these islands, how those persons are embraced, and how we move forward together as Turks and Caicos Islanders, And wherever your point of origin, if you are indeed a Turks and Caicos Islander, then you are one of us. And so that is the difference there that we have to make because of where we find ourselves. If we had a blank slate, then we would have more options. But in terms of where we are now, and for the long-term development and security and social cohesion of these islands, this is where we have to begin. And so we do have to have a policy, a strategy as to how we move forward. Now, central to the work that has already started picks up on your question. We have a population growth rate of about 4%. It is the highest in the region, if not one of the highest. And so what we have done in our Vision 2040 is to chart a goal of reducing that growth rate by at least 50%. And so then if you do that, that informs other decision-making. It informs decision-making of whether you permit a particular type of development, whether you encourage another particular kind of development, or whether you promote a particular kind of thing. So it helps to inform decision-making across government in a way that protects the integrity of our society. So these are difficult problems, difficult, challenging issues that can be incredibly disruptive. We're not shying away from them. We are doing our best to understand them and to tackle them. And we recognize that we must do it together.
Thank you.
Madam President, may I?
Yes, go ahead, please.
So good morning, and thank you, Honorable Knowles, for a very reasoned, calm, and thoughtful presentation. I think we face, in fact, I like Father Palacios. I grew up in Inagua, but I was born in South Caicos, so these issues are personal to me. But my question is, when I look at your situation, which is very similar to here in the Bahamas, and I wonder, here in the Bahamas, when I look at the local population, there's a lot of anger and frustration and frightening activities happening, and I'm not sure we're dealing with the problems as they ought to be dealt with. I listened to your presentation, I hear how calm and thoughtful you are and visionary, and I wonder if that same feeling is felt among the general population in Turks and Caicos.
Well, the population in Turks, as I said, you're very similar to the Bahamas, and you're very insightful in that regard. And, the population generally is anxious, but leaders have to be calm, and leaders have to have vision, and leaders have to lead. And in a time when it is very, at times when everyone is happy, and at times, and more importantly, at times when everyone feels anxious. And so, as I said, in our current social construct, we have persons, everyone who is here, every faction feels marginalized. And so what we have to do, the difficult, very difficult job, is craft a way for persons, a set of people to feel they belong to these islands. They are Turks and Caicos Islanders, and that they can work together to help to craft the future. I've seen the news reports of some of the things that are going on there in the Bahamas, and they're not dissimilar to conversations that are being held on street corners, under trees, at domino tables in people's living rooms and kitchen tables and so on. But we can't just, become hysterical about the issues that we face. We must work together, put our heads together. We have the expertise, we have the knowledge, we have the wherewithal to achieve our goals. And so we must tackle the issues. And this is why the Premier appointed the Population Policy Committee. That committee has, as part of its membership, a variety of different viewpoints. All Turks and Caicos Islanders, all of them. And I gave you my own personal history, and I'll tell you one more thing. Recently, we went around the islands and did sought public comment in respect of a set of proposals to reform our constitution. And I'm not a politician. I am appointed into this role as the first Turks and Caicos Islander, as the presenter said, but in a competition amongst persons really from anywhere. I think there were 24 applicants from all around the world. And so I say that because I'm not here to represent any particular faction, any political interest, but I work very closely with politicians and, to provide dispassionate legal advice to them and help them to achieve their goals as their platforms as elected by the people of these islands. And so we went around the islands, island to island, with these questions. And one of the very tricky questions was about who is a Turks and Caicos Islander? And on a panel where I was the only non-politician, on a panel that was bipartisan and had members from both political parties, we had the following persons. We had a person like myself, born in the Turks and Caicos Islands to a Bajan father and to a Turks and Caicos Islands mother. Another member who was born in the United States to Turks and Caicos Islands parents who had migrated there. We had another member who was born in the Bahamas to a Bahamian father and a Turks and Caicos Islands mother. We had another member who was born in the Turks and Caicos Islands to a British white father and a Turks and Caicos Islands mother. We had another member who was born in the Turks and Caicos Islands to Turks and Caicos Islands parents. And we pointed each of them out, 5 persons. And we said we asked those that were in the audiences, who is the Turks and Caicos Islander? Right? And they paused for a moment and they said, all of you are Turks and Caicos Islanders. There is a possibility that in some people's minds, out of those 5 persons, there was really only one, if you think about it. But if we were to be so myopic in our view of who really is a Turks and Caicos Islander, then we would have so few Turks and Caicos Islanders, and we would divide ourselves in such a way that would be against our own interests. And so all 5 of those persons and other diversities which weren't on the platform, but which exist in our community, are Turks and Caicos Islanders. And so what we have to do is the difficult work that was done in other countries, such as Singapore, who embraced those persons who belonged and made those persons to feel that they did belong and that they are in fact Turks and Caicos Islanders. That's the job that we are working on today in these islands.
Thank you for that.
Honorable Knowles, that was just so inspiring. The only thing I would have changed about your presentation is to have you in the room with us. You were simply awesome. That's the only thing that would have made that difference.
Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, if you're visiting the Bahamas, we would love you back and we love you in person. So I'm gonna
I was just there. I've only just left the Bahamas.
I'll talk to the little man and see if he can make that happen, but thank you so much. To do the official thank you though, let me invite our own Rotarian Ellsworth, former Minister of Immigration, and very fitting person to move this vote of thanks. Rotarian Ellsworth.
Good morning, Madam President. Good morning, all. Good morning, Mrs. Rhondalee, Brathwaite, Knowles, Casey, Attorney General of the Turks and Caicos Islands. On behalf of our president, I would like to commend. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear
On
you.
behalf of our president, officers and members of the Nassau Sunrise Rotary Club, I would like to express profound gratitude to you for your fearless, impartial, objective, and unbiased presentation this morning on a matter that's socially, culturally, economically, and religiously sensitive. You were extremely comprehensive in identifying the dignity of the human person and how we have an international and national responsibility and a regional responsibility to protect the dignity and integrity of the human person, no matter from whence they come, but also looking at the integrity of the sovereignty of the countries, Turks and Caicos Island in particular, and how do we preserve that for persons yet unborn, while at the same time safeguarding the fundamental rights of all those persons who find themselves in the Turks and Caicos Islands and in the Bahamas, and protecting them and protecting the very entity that we call a country. I'm blown away by how you, and I'm quite certain all of the members, at how you were able to fairly address this issue. And we learned, we are taking away a lot of it because, as you said, we're experiencing the same thing. And I'm gonna get quiet just now, but for an issue where you had to bring in the local Bahamian police to deal with certain circumstances that affect the stability of the country, the national security of the country. I love the way how you're calm. And I'd just like to say, I have a very interesting uncle, never went to university, but he says some very profound things to me that just blows me away. And I was experiencing something one time, and he said, son, when you're traveling on the high seas of life and the high waves burst across the bow of the boat and wash in, and water sometimes start to come in, the last person on the ship who should get nervous, who should abandon leadership, is the captain and the mate. And so I want to commend you. Thank you very much. As Madam Justice Carla Card says, all of us who are issues from the Eugene DePuche Law School and the Council of Legal Education are very proud of you for your accomplishments, but for most important, for your respect for the dignity of the lives of the human persons, because I know, as you know, there are a lot of persons who may find themselves in a certain circumstances, women and children in particular, and they need protection. May God continue to bless you. May God continue to bless the region, and in particular, because you hail from the Turks and Caicos Islands, the Turks and Caicos. Yes. Enjoy the rest of your day, man. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you, Ellsworth.
You're welcome. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, President. I must depart now to catch my flight, but I'm very grateful to have been in your company, and I wish you well for the rest of your meeting. God bless you all.
Thank you, and safe travel. I'm sure the SAD will have Rotarian Ellsworth to give you another, but that was well done. Thank you, Rotarian Ellsworth. If you were inspired, and I'm sure you were, then you want to get involved with our peace and conflict resolution projects. There's a big project coming up on February 25th. It's Saturday, February 25. Please write it down, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Uriah Macfie Primary School. And it's themed Kemp Road, Peace in the Park. So you're going to join RCOB as we come together to have a fun afternoon, because you know, sports and these kinds of activities help to, you know, temper moods and to build camaraderie in the community. And of course, we get to inspire them with our service as Rotarians. So there'll be a mini basketball tournament. There'll be hot dogs, hamburgers, free haircuts for the children, and talks about career opportunities. I'm sure there will be something there for all of us to do. So let's get all hands on deck. We're partnering with Herbal Renewal and Crime Stoppers, National Neighborhood Watch Council, Scouts Association of the Bahamas, and many more. And there, of course, there'll be prize giving and so on. So if you want to get involved with any of our projects for this month, this should be one of them. So please make a note in your diary for Saturday, 25th of February, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Briar McPhee Primary School. All right, so with that said, we'll take, and I know Chair Chevette has another announcement about an upcoming project. If you're online, please open your mic and go ahead with your announcement. And if there are any other announcements, please indicate so we can take you right after.
Good morning. Chair Chevette wasn't able to make it, but I'll do the announcement for her. So just wanted to remind everyone about the community service event that's this coming Saturday at the Children's Emergency Hostel. It's in conjunction with the Rotary Club of South Ocean and also in conjunction with PMH, Pediatric Department. So we're having a health fair for the children at the emergency hostel. It starts at 12 p.m., runs from 12 to 3 p.m. So we're gonna be doing health screening for the kids. We're also gonna have face painting, games, and providing lunch for the kids as well. So we need all hands on deck. And just a reminder, the hostel requires a negative COVID test, a negative antigen test for all persons coming in. So we do have on-site testing for those who aren't able to get tests prior to coming in. So it's going to be a fun event, and we're excited to see everybody who are able to come. Thank you.
This Saturday, Nazareth.
Children's Hostel.
Right, so please post something in the group chat. Okay. That is clear and the venue clear in advance. Any other announcements? Are there any other announcements?
Yes, good morning, President Rhondalee. This is Director Simone. Just thanking those persons that have completed the membership check-in survey and to remind others to please share your feedback with us. It's been really good information so far that will help us in our planning for now and the future of our club. Thank you.
Thank you, Membership Director. Please, guys, the last time I looked at it, only a few persons had completed that survey, and we need to hear from you. This is a way to feedback to the leadership so that we can, if we're going down the wrong road, we can pivot and move in the direction that you'd like to see the club move into. All right, are there any other announcements? Do I have Chair tomorrow online to take our birthdays, anniversaries? We have 4 minutes to 8.
Good morning, President Bonnet. Good morning, I'm online. Thank you. Good morning, Rotarians. Good morning, guests. We have one celebrant this morning, P.P. Pratino. He is celebrating 12 years in Rotary on February 3rd. I saw him online. So P.P. Pratino, congratulations. You've made it to 12 years. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. I also want to remind Rotarians to continue to pray for Director Sophia's father-in-law, Reverend Morse. Let's continue to keep him in prayer. And we want to celebrate with PHE Carla. Yesterday, she received her papers. She ascended to justice of the Supreme Court. We are very, very proud of you. It just makes you feel good, makes you feel good. And also I saw online, Yvonne, Director Yvonne Gibson-Sands, she won an award, Agent of the Year for Group Medical. I saw something with Kenny Knowles and his chess tournament that was successful. It was sponsored by Kalina. So a lot of things happening, and just want to celebrate with all of you. You know, we have a lot of rough patches going on, but when it's time to celebrate, let's celebrate and support each other. The month of love. So let's reach out to our fellow Rotarians to encourage them, share some love, and to just keep everyone in good spirits. We're almost there.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Chair
President
Samar.
Ronnie.
Thank you. I don't think we have time for the stage. So we're gonna have a blanket slide. If you're happy about something, please enter it in the chat and how much you're happy for. So for example, if you're happy to be the new Supreme Court Justice, just enter $10 in the chat, you know, stuff like that. You won't refuse. If you're celebrating a new granddaughter, just put a little $5 in the chat. You know, if you're happy to be alive, just put a $2 in the chat. I'm going to invite Director Atisha to come forward with the raffle. As we know, our raffle this morning, the rice cooker. Can't get rice wrong with this. If you've been spoiling the rice, if you've been spoiling the rice, or you're a bachelor, or you want to help out wifey with making the rice, young men, if you want to help your wife with making perfect rice, it would work. All right. Come and take it from me, please. The name on so this person loves to fish. Oh my goodness. So I know to go with the fish, you're gonna have to cook some rice. Yeah. Father B, you are Father B, you're not in a congratulations. 394. Congratulations. Congratulations, Father B.
I won.
Right, so please be upstanding as we invite Rotarian Nacho to do the four-way test. Rotarian Nacho. Are you there, Rotarian Nacho? All right, if not, let me invite, is there? All right. Director Matisha.
Good morning again. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned?
Is it the truth?
Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you. And to do our final toast, Rotarian Crestwell. Is Rotarian Crestwell online? Sarge. All right, let me invite Rotarian Angelica. Could you do our final toast, please?
To Rotary around the world.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. Thank you. Now, again.